President John Taylor. In reading over these statements, there are some things that may be necessary to mention. It would take too much time to give before this conference a detailed account of all the receipts and disbursements of the trustee and trust. We have, however, an auditing committee, which was duly appointed by the conference for the purpose of examining all the income and expenditure and comparing and investigating all these matters. We have to look to them for their action in regard to these details, and a vote has already been taken on the subject. However, it is proper you should know these things, and I would state that, although I act as trustee and trust, still the auditing committee, I presume, know more of the details of these things than I do, because they come more especially under their supervision. In regard to the operations of the Perpetual Emigration Fund Company, we remitted, as you know, at the Jubilee, quite a large amount, leaving a debt also of a very large amount. I find the statement is not here. However, I suppose it amounts, in general terms, to some $700,000 or $800,000, yet due to that fund. And having remitted a like amount, we do expect the brethren who are owing this fund will try now to meet their obligations, in order that we may have a better showing than we have today. We certainly ought to be ashamed, as a people, of our negligence in regard to this thing. Out of this $800,000, we have only received about $8,000 within the last 6 months. That is about 1/100th part. It is a rather poor showing for Latter-day Saints who profess to be honest, and I think we ought to attend to these matters. This money has been laid out to assist people in coming to this land, and their promises to pay have been received. We have authorized the bishops and presidents of several states to remit a certain amount of this indebtedness, and we do expect that those who are owing a balance will be honorable enough to attend to it. Otherwise, it places it out of our power, without calling upon those who have hitherto subscribed to help us to meet obligations, and that would hardly be an act of justice. We therefore call upon those brethren who are owing the Emigration Fund to attend to it, in order that the funds of the company may be relieved, and that we may be able to give assistance to those who desire to emigrate to this country. For there are others, besides you, who ought to receive the benefit of this fund, and those who do not pay their indebtedness are depriving them of this privilege. Excuse me if I talk plainly upon this subject. It is a subject of importance, and men ought to meet their indebtedness. But when men do not attempt to meet obligations that are due to the poor, they become delinquent before their brethren and before their God. We do not have jubilees, you know, every year. They only come once in 50 years. Therefore these things ought to be attended to. I speak thus in behalf of the poor in Europe. Their cries come to me from time to time, and to the Perpetual Emigration Fund Company, saying, "Cannot you assist us?" Why, yes, we could help you bountifully if your brethren who have received assistance would only be honest and meet their obligations, and we would do it very gladly with a willing heart and with good feelings. In regard to the labors of the Relief Society, they are certainly very creditable and very praiseworthy, and I felt unwilling that these sisters should not be made mention of, for they are doing a very creditable labor in Israel. It seems to be the peculiar province of the sisters to act in this capacity, and I do not know but that they put a blush a little even some of the brethren. We act, it is true, pretty liberally in many instances, and in some not very, but the sisters have been very liberal and generous, and have accomplished the object they have had in view, which has been to look after the poor, the needy, the destitute, the sick, and the afflicted, and to administer to their wants. And I suppose they are about the best kind of teacher that our bishops have to assist them in their several wards. I think the bishops would give that testimony. They are very efficient in assisting them in their various wards, and they make splendid teachers in going round and looking after the welfare, especially of their sisters, for they can sympathize and know their requirements better than men do sometimes. And then these sisters are producing a very good moral influence in their teachings. We have many pure, high-minded ladies who go forth among the people and travel from place to place as missionaries, teaching, instructing, guiding, blessing, and benefiting the people. And I say, God bless the sisters for their labors. And I say to them, continue in your good work, and God will continue to bless you and your children after you. And many thousands will yet rise and call you blessed. Seek to instill into your daughters, as you are doing, and into your sons, the principles of chastity and virtue and honor, that while men without principle and without honor and contrary to truth are maligning you, you may stand forth, and your children with you, as the protectors and maintainers of virtue, and keep your daughters from the contaminating influence of those abominable wretches, characters who are seeking to introduce iniquity in our midst, and to destroy your virtue. There are numbers of these men, and they publish unblushingly in their papers that they would rather your sons and your daughters were drunkards and prostitutes and debauchees than be subject to the tyranny we exercise over you. Do you want their tender mercies? Do you want to wallow in their corruption? Do you want to be besmeared with their infamy? God forbid! Amen by the congregation. God forbid! I say, my soul, enter not thou into their secret, and with them mine honor be not thou united. They are too low, too degraded for honorable men and women to have anything to do with, and I call upon the elders and upon the fathers of this people, and upon the sisters and mothers of this people to protect their sons and daughters from those loathsome lepers that have come among you, who profess to be the advocates of freedom, forsooth, and equal rights, just as much as the devil is. The devil is a pretended advocate of freedom and the rights of men, but we don't want to place ourselves under his tender mercy and not theirs. I am pleased to listen to the statements that have been made in regard to our Sunday schools, and I would say that there is not a more honorable employment in which our elders, our sisters, and our brethren can be engaged in than in training up our children in the ways of life. And I am happy to find that there are nearly 33,000 of our children that are under their influence, who are teaching them the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the revelations of God, who are teaching them morality and purity and virtue, and training them up in the fear of God. Continue to do it, and you will have a generation that will rise up and bless you, and bless mankind in spite of themselves, and in spite of the corruption with which we are surrounded. God bless all men and all women who seek to promote good and pure, virtuous, holy, and honorable principles, and the curse of God will rest upon those who take a contrary course. These things do not appear at once, but these things will surely follow as God reigns in the heavens. Then, in regard to the views, ideas, and notions of those outside, many of whom are consistent and thoughtful, but a great many of whom are corrupt and led by improper and corrupt principles, in regard to their ideas we ask very little odds of them. We will try to pursue the even tenor of our way. We will cleave to God, to truth, to righteousness. We will stand as saviors upon Mount Zion, and bless all who will receive the truth, will maintain the principles of liberty, equality, and brotherhood among all peoples. And we will oppose fraud and corruption and illiberality and degradation in every form and bondage in every shape. And we will pray to the Almighty to help us carry out these principles, which are in the interests of humanity, so far as He gives us strength and power to do it. But to barter away the principles that God has committed to us, never, no never, no never. And let all the congregation say Amen. The vast assemblage responded as with one voice, Amen. God bless you and lead you in the paths of truth. Amen.